I'm going to call the meeting to order, and the Board of Directors will participate in a meeting remotely utilizing Zoom in accordance with the Governor's March 12th order suspending provisions of the open meeting law and to promote public health and social distancing. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently tonight. I'm going to turn this over to Lizzie Green, who's representative of Seth Moulton's office on veterans caseworker. And so with that, Lizzie, thank you so much for joining us, and it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate being able to meet everyone virtually. So Karen asked me to come and talk just a little bit about the aid and attendance process, and specifically I want to underscore the importance of our local VSOs throughout this entire application process. Aid and attendance is a notoriously difficult process with the VA. It requires a veteran or their spouse or surviving spouse to be in an incredibly vulnerable position financially, physically, and also just the process takes a very long time. So we have veterans who are in a very vulnerable spot for an extended period of time before they experience the relief that is aid and attendance. So with that, our VSOs are really our eyes and ears on the ground for this. Oftentimes they're the ones interfacing directly with families. We are not able to fill out the applications for them legally. We're meant to serve as more of a neutral third party in sending along materials and checking in on the status of applications. So VSOs do a lot of the labor in terms of filling out the forms, but also a lot of the emotional labor and caring for these families and making sure that they are all safe throughout this process. So Karen and I have worked pretty closely over the last couple of months, and maintaining relationships like that definitely allows us another perspective on these processes. So for example, a good case that Karen and I are working on had a claim that was denied due to a claimant not having a lot size of their residence. And little niches and catches in the system like this, when I have someone like Karen who I'm working with who can catch these, it allows me to return to the VA on tell them, these are the issues that our veterans are seeing, and this is causing months-long delays in getting these benefits they deserve. So having the VSO connection is incredibly important here. And again, all of these little nuances require so much institutional knowledge. For example, a lot of my VSOs come to me and they say, from experience, we know that we need this form, but they're not going to tell you that we need this form. So all this institutional knowledge that VSOs can gather and can share with us and with families is really valuable. And we are so fortunate in Massachusetts that we have them, because you can imagine, an individual who doesn't have these tremendous resources going about this process, it's going to take longer and it's going to be more stressful on the family. So the role that the VSO plays here is just absolutely invaluable. And again, some of the things that our office is able to do in this case, we talk about aid and attendance quite a bit. It's difficult to sort of decide a perfect course of action, but it's definitely something that the congressman is aware of, and it's definitely, the bane of my existence from a casework perspective. Whenever we get an aid and attendance, I think, you cross your fingers and you just hope and hope and hope that it goes through smoothly, just due to the nature of the process. So from our office's side, we've created lines of communications with the VA Secretary Wilkie. We've written him letters. We've demanded statistics on processing times for these sorts of claims. And we really, really try our best to, hold them to a standard which, the veterans deserve, because they're deserving of this benefit and they're in a vulnerable spot. So all this is to say that we're definitely having an eye on all these different processes, and we would certainly not be able to do it without the VSOs. And if we didn't have the VSOs, maybe it could happen, but it certainly wouldn't be as smooth as it is. So we are so appreciative, and it's a really great connection to have. So I'm really glad that we have people that reach out and we can work closely with, like Karen and myself. And if anyone has any questions, feel free. That's kind of all that I have, the basic gist.
Hi, Lizzie, Bill. I'm just wondering how this relationship works between our VSO and yourself and the Veterans Service Organization. Just to be clear, that does Karen call you and then you find out answers, or is it the other way around?
It can be either. Yeah, it can be either way. So sometimes a VSO can email me and say, hey, I've been working with so-and-so on X issue. Can you reach out to the VA, determine where this claim is at, determine where this appeal is at, XYZ, any number of things. And we're able to reach out and advocate on that end. Or sometimes we get a constituent who's come to us and said, you know, I'm looking to apply for XYZ aid and attendance, for example. I can say, all right, great. Have you talked to your local VSO?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they say, yes, I have, or sometimes they'll say, no, I haven't. Who's that? Can you give me that information? And we have a great database where we can connect constituents in that way.
Yeah, just one more question. It came up at our veterans meeting this week. One person was and was unclear of the method to go and do that. I mean, is it a phone call to Karen? Is it a phone call to Lizzie? Is it go to Bedford? Do you just show up there with your DD-214? Just what's the process for someone to get in the loop?
Sure. So either way, anything can start with our office. If you have any questions about anything, a good place to start is probably us, because we have a great team of caseworkers who handle a variety of issues from, you know, myself as veterans. We have someone who specializes in housing and Social Security. So oftentimes with all those extra eyes, it can be helpful. But also if you do have a veteran who's looking to start an application process, then the VSO is also a great spot. So I guess the best answer is that you can kind of reach out to either of us, and both parties will probably get connected at some point anyhow. But a good place to start is always our office as well, if anyone.
And the application process is nothing more than a form. I don't remember how I did it. I think I did it at some fair or something like that just a few years back. Is it just filling out an application?
It depends on what you're applying for, and maybe Karen can speak a little bit more to this, because we're, again, not allowed to fill out these applications, but it depends on what you're applying for. So some of these things are forms, medical documents, other, like if you're applying for a disability compensation, that requires an exam. So it definitely depends based on the process.
Yeah, I think it's just they're just looking to get in the system, just being recognized as a veteran, and then they're trying to figure out what they can do for their certain conditions that they have.
Mm-hmm. Sure, you can definitely have them reach out to us, because we have a few veterans who we've just started in the VA healthcare system. So definitely you can send them our way.
Okay, and that's on the website, Lizzie, Constituent Service Representative and Veterans Caseworker. They can.
Yeah, so I'll type my email address in the chat, but if someone is looking for, or maybe there isn't a chat, but I can tell everyone my email address as well. But there is on the website, if you're looking for services from a federal agency, there's a way that you can submit the privacy release online. So it just goes directly to us, and then we can open a case that way. So there's a bunch of different avenues, but if it would help, I can also give my email address.
Yeah, if Karen probably has it. If she just send it out to the board here as a connection point, that would be great. Okay, but thank you, Lizzie.
Yeah. Lizzie, this is Mike Flynn. I have a quick question. Does each representative, each senator have embedded folks like yourself, you know, or Social Security, veterans? You know, what's the model that you guys sort of work in the rep's office under? And is that translated to other reps, or is it sort of rep by rep? Is it senator by senator? How does it work? Just sort of big picture.
Sure. So in our office, yes, it is a breakdown by issue. So like I said, we have someone who handles Social Security and Medicare, and we have someone who handles immigration. So there's a specialized individual for each area. That's not exactly the same in all offices. Generally, the casework team, it can be divided by issue, but it can also be divided by region. So you could have people that, you know, take the towns of, you know, Marblehead, Swampscott, Salem, etc., and it's regional in that way. So it definitely depends. I know, if I remember correctly, Elizabeth Warren's office is a little bit more regional, but our office also has regional directors. So like we just mentioned, Kelly, who lives in Ipswich, has, you know, a handful of towns, and then our other regional director, Matt, has a handful of towns as well. So we have a bunch of different sort of layered avenues, but again, it's not standard per se, but all the offices have their own breakdown based on who handles what, whether it's regional or topical.
Okay, but I would just say personally, it makes a lot of sense the way this is structured. So you build an expertise in a specific area and cross-functional if there's a Social Security and a veterans issue. So for that, Lizzie, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, anyone?
So I just wanted to, you know, you were asking like who calls who or how does that work and stuff. And so I just wanted to let you know. So right now, me and Lizzie are working on about three cases for eight. They're all aid in attendance. And this is after I've been working with the families. One of them I worked with for about a year and a half. And every time they kept asking, you know, we would submit the documents and they would ask for more documentation, more. And so it got to a point where we were like, you're not asking for all the documentation, you know, up front and everything. You're doing it piece by piece. So every time you turn something in, it's like that carrot you can't catch. And they were changing the forms or changing what they were requesting. And so I said, you know, this is crazy. We're chasing our tails here. And so I called the congressman's office and I said, you know, and that's when I started. So that's when I started getting them involved and stuff. And so I have with these aid in attendance cases, but sometimes when something gets to a level where, you know, if it's federal, like the VA, that's when you have to get the congressman involved. If it was like a state benefit and it got to a point where, you know, we weren't getting a resolution or we just hit, you know, a wall, then, you know, then you go to your state reps and things like that. But to have that liaison between, you know, because she has access to specific people who can look into the cases because, you know, as a VSO, I'm local. I don't have access to federal information. And so, so yeah, I mean, I like to tap her in, you know, when there's a situation that I want to advocate for the veteran or their family. And I feel like, you know, what they're doing isn't right. You know what I mean? There's more of a systemic problem to how the benefit is being, you know, how you're required to, what it is that they're looking for if it doesn't fall in line with what is actually being asked, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, it sounds like a good synergistic relationship, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's some, you know, at some point you just, there's nothing more I could do. It's like Oz behind the, you know, curtain that I can't get to. And so that's when I get on the horn and I call Lizzie and you know, bust out the big guns, right?
Mhm.
And so, and we have been able, we have one that we just got a resolution on, which we're both very, very happy about. I know, and I have been working with the family for since 2018. And so it was first for the veteran, and then actually, I apologize. I can keep going and telling stories, but I'm just happy that we are getting a resolution after been working with this family since 2018.
That's really frustrating for that length of period of time.
Yeah.
Especially for aid and attendance.
Yeah. And so this is kind of, you know, this has been something that's really the whole program doesn't make sense. I mean, it sets you up for failure from, you know, from the very beginning. And so I'm glad that the congressman and other, you know, federal legislators and stuff, I'm just glad that they're taking a look and that, you know, there's a lot of attention being brought to this issue because.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Lizzie, one more question. You work out of the Congressman Moulton's office, I guess, which is in Boston someplace, or I'm not sure where it is.
It's in Salem. The district office is in Salem.
Okay. Do the other congressional leaders in Massachusetts have a similar job as your job, or is it just this is near and dear to his heart, veterans, has somebody on his staff to deal with veterans?
Sure, that's a good question. So I would say that our office has a bit more of, we handle veterans casework definitely in a slightly different way. I would say that we're a little bit more hands-on than most offices due to the, you know, connection with Seth. However, all offices, all congressional offices should have a capability to deal with veterans issues and to advocate for their veterans. But I would say that we do have a special emphasis given the congressman's service.
So so the other congressmen don't really have anybody that has the title of veterans caseworker, veterans this.
Oh, no,
There's always
they do.
congressional interest, but
Yeah, so I would say yes, they do. I'm familiar with the veterans caseworker in Congresswoman Trahan's office. So again, it goes to the point of all offices are organized slightly differently, but where it's definitely not like the most unique position. I'm sure a lot of other spots have a veteran-specific caseworker, but it's also possible that they have a lot of people that do veterans because they do it in a more regional way. But just the focus on the importance of this casework is definitely a high priority for the congressman. So that's
right.
why I say we're probably a little bit different than the others.
Yeah, I'd be interested, maybe you could get back to Karen. Are there other people like you out of the other congressional districts that have a similar person like you?
Sure.
Or is it just when you get the letter congressional interest, is it just somebody on staff that staffs it out to work Veterans Affairs? It reflects greatly on Seth that he does this. I'm just curious whether it's just Seth or the other folks are really engaged like he's engaged.
Certainly, I can look into it because I am familiar with a couple different veterans caseworkers throughout, but I wouldn't know for all the offices, so I can work on finding a list because it would
Yeah, it might be good for you too to do some cross-fertilization or something like that to find other people that are just like you. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have a question for Liz?
I sort of have a question a little off topic from Veterans Services, but I'm curious as the mother of a career Air Force officer, there's been a lot in the news lately about Fort Hood and the tragedies that have been happening there. And I'm just wondering if the congressman has been involved in those investigations, and both at Fort Hood and maybe at other military facilities.
Sure. So I believe the congressman was involved in signing on to a letter demanding an investigation into Fort Hood, which I would have to check up on my legislative memory on that one, but I think that's going to happen. I know that in our office, we have a bunch of people who are specifically focused. We have a bunch of veterans on staff, just given the nature of, Seth's history, as I've mentioned. So it's been a huge conversation. Whenever that comes up, we take it very seriously. And I do believe Seth had signed on to that letter demanding the investigation into Fort Hood. And we've been working with other offices as well on that. So more to follow on that for sure. I'll definitely look and keep an eye on that as well.
Great, thank you. And thank you for being here tonight.
Absolutely.
Just a follow up on that. My grandson is now 8 months in the Marine Corps. And so I was emphasizing to him about the UCMJ, that it's unforgiving, and to watch himself. So I started to ask him some questions about, now there's, the integration of the Marine Corps with women is, I think it's a little bit more than the other services right now. And the emphasis of male-female relationships within the Corps. And, emphasize. He said, Papa, you don't have to tell me. Every day I get this. So it was good to hear that he got it in boot camp, and he got it up when he was up at Camp Geiger, when he went infantry training. And now he's out at Pendleton, and he's going to be an Amtracker. So he's in amphibious warfare school that he's going to next. So, but he's hearing it all the time. So it was good to hear that. So anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, just want to go back,
So
Lizzie, if you could feed back to the congressman.
Lizzie, thank you so much.
Oh,
I'm sorry, go. ahead.
This is Bill here again. This is for Lizzie. Just if you could feedback to the congressman, I think he's doing a great job with veterans and veteran services, putting emphasis on that, and keep up the heat and the pace and that sort of thing. So I think your job's very vital and important to him going forward here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll definitely pass it along. I'll tell him tomorrow morning on it.
Lizzie, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm not going to let you don't have to stay with us, okay? So we wish you all the best. Thank you. And tell the congressman Semper Fi. Okay?
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye,
Yeah.
Lizzie.
All right. So that was really nice. Thank you, Karen, for getting Lizzie. That was good to have her and have, have a face, and name and, together. Moving on, we're gonna, number 2 is reorganization of the board. So we have chairman, vice chairman, and secretary, correct? So how does the board feel going forward for this year? Do I have any nominations from the floor?
I would like to nominate Bob Snow to continue as chairman.
Do I have
If
any other
you're willing to, Bob.
Any other nominations?
Who are our members now?
Well, we have, let's see, Mike Flynn, Doug Dawes, Linda, Mike Doyle, myself, and who am I missing here? Wait a minute, I gotta go back to second chief.
Bob James.
Bill Wilson, Wenham.
Yeah, Bill Wilson.
Is John Clemenzi still?
Bob James.
To a lesser degree, but he's,
He's now chairman of the Board of Selectmen, correct?
no, he's not. I mean, it's still
Okay.
Jack Wilhelm. Still
Oh,
there.
okay. Well, I thought
Yes.
he was going to be.
So we
Sorry.
have a new selectman out. He's got one more year on the board.
All right.
Well, so is John the member of the board and Bill, you're the alternate, or has that reversed?
It's a good question. I think, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I came in as the alternate, but I've been kind of like doing most of the activity here. So I'm not sure if he's still wants to be engaged or wants me to be the primary leader. It's a question to him, not so much to me.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Okay. So we have one nomination for chairman. Do we have a second?
Bob, do you have it? Do you have
Mike,
a?
Mike's on too. Mike's trying to speak and he's
I'm
on.
sorry, Doug. I'm sorry, Linda.
I'm
Doug, go ahead.
Are you asking for a second on the nomination or a second nomination?
Or a second nomination. Do I have a second nomination?
That was my question.
Okay. Do I have another name from the floor? Okay. Do I have a second for nomination for Bob Snow for chairman?
I'll second that.
I have a second. All those in favor with a roll call vote? Anybody else?
Linda Alex, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Mike Flynn, aye.
And I'll abstain from that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, vice chair. Do I have any nominations from the floor for vice chair?
Who is the current vice chair?
Linda, you're current vice chair, aren't you?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm
Okay.
secretary.
Who was the?
Was it John?
Yes, I believe it was John.
John.
Yes, I believe it was John. Do I have any nominations? Do you wish to nominate somebody to be vice chair or?
Bill, do you know if John has expressed any interest in retaining a officer role on this board?
I can't speak for him.
Well, I didn't know if you had spoken with him.
I have not spoken with him.
I would say I think John's perspective and history could be valuable as a vice chair. Provides a depth, a historical depth. I'm sure he'd give it as a board member, but I think that's a valuable asset in a vice chair. Just speaking speaking to that.
Okay,
Well, I think, I just want to add that if we're going to nominate and appoint, vote him as vice chair, I think we should know if he is interested and will be attending meetings.
Right, I hate to nominate somebody when they're not around.
Correct.
That is the way of the military, though. Who gets nominated? The person who's late for the meeting or not at the meeting.
that's true. That's so true. All right.
No, but I think in fairness to him,
I'm making light of it, Linda, but I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Bill, can you get back to John and see if, because it seems like the board has an interest in making John the vice chair, if he wishes to have the position, okay? So
Okay.
we'll wait on a vote on that.
All right, then.
Secretary, Linda, you are the secretary, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
Okay. Do I have any motions from the floor for a secretary?
I would nominate Linda if she still wants to be the secretary.
And I would also agree with that.
So we have nomination for Linda to be secretary. Do I have a second? Take Doug as,
Wow.
I think you're the first one that said,
Yeah, I did. So Michael, why don't you second that?
I will second
I have-
as a nominee for secretary and then continuing role.
okay, so I have a second. All those in favor of the roll call vote? I'll go first.
So let me just ask something
Okay.
here, because I'm kind of.
Hold on.
So what- Bob, especially, what do you envision the role of the secretary to do? Because there wasn't really much to do. We have a minutes secretary who
Right.
takes.
Well, I think, take roll call vote in case the chair or vice chair isn't present to take over that role.
Okay, all
Okay,
right,
okay.
very good.
All right, I'll second that with a roll call vote. I, Robert Snow.
Hi, Doug Dawes.
Mike?
I'm Mike Flynn.
Okay. All right, and Lindy, you're going to abstain, I take it?
I can.
And I, Bill Wilson.
Yeah, Bill, too.
All right, so be it. Lindy, you're the
Bob, did you
secretary.
vote?
Huh?
Did
I
you
voted.
vote? Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations.
Okay, has everybody read the minutes?
Yes, I move to approve the minutes of June 24th.
I have, they've been moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second. Any questions on the minutes? All those in favor of the roll call vote? I, Robert Snow.
I, Linda Alexson.
Hi, Doug Dawes.
I'm Mike Flynn.
I, Bill Wilson.
They are approved. Next, chairman's report. You people who get the American Legion, I don't know if you've read it this month, but I saw this, it's hard to believe. It's 30 years since the Gulf War. I almost fell over when I started to read this article. It's about toxic effects. Have you seen this in the Legion this month? But I was talking about anthrax and all the health issues that the Gulf War veterans had. I don't know if you were familiar with it. My brother-in-law was in the first Gulf War, and he has had all kinds of issues. At first, they thought it was uranium-depleted rounds, but now there's some evidence that it may be the anthrax and toxins in the antivirus that they were given. So it's just food for thought. And if we've been so wrapped up with the war on terror and the veterans here, these Gulf War veterans have kind of been pushed to the side. So if you can just, have you run into that, Karen?
No, I haven't, but hearing that is kind of crazy for me to hear because I was actually getting ready to deploy and found out that I wasn't deploying right before. I was like literally right about to get my anthrax shot. Yikes.
Yikes, right.
But no, I haven't heard that.
Okay, if you get this issue, I think it's the one with the it's September issue. It's got MacArthur on the front cover there. So if you want to read that, I think it's kind of interesting. I think we're probably going to start to see some talk about this with the anthrax vaccine that may have caused all the problems with the Gulf War vets. So anyway, that's all I have for the chairman's report. I'll move on to director's report.
Bob, I'm sorry, can I just ask a clarifying question? Was the
Sure.
article regarding issues resulting from the anthrax vaccine or exposure to anthrax?
No, it's an anthrax vaccine.
Okay.
So they believe it's the toxic effects it may be having on the veterans.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And
Sorry about that. So moving on to director's report.
also on our website, we do have a link for Gulf War illness. So just want to put that out there that I have the three, I have for Agent Orange, Gulf War illness is also on there. So anyway, so for the director's report, so instead of doing, so usually we have a in-person conference in October with Department of Veteran Services, and usually it's a multi-day conference. Obviously, we're not going to be doing it now, so we're doing it all virtually. We had a training on burials, and so DVS they're setting up different, Zoom training sessions, like at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock that you have to sign up for and all that. So, make sure that me and Kathy go through all the different trainings and, hit all the different topics. So I think that's something that, since nobody can sit in front of a Zoom call for, the 8 hours a day, we're going to spread it out over a longer period of time. But yeah, and I just had another training for caregiver support program, Kathy and I. So the laws and legislation for what we do as for veteran benefits, it's called CMR 108. And so there's been a committee and we've been going through it from, page 1 to the end of the book, just reading every single line to see if there's anything that needs to be changed or more directives that need to be incorporated into the laws and regulations and what might, because we do have a legislative committee that, will present bills. And so just trying to see, kind of pick like the top couple of, what we're looking at and to see if we can set something up to go in front of legislation. So if there's changes that need to be made, that's one of the things that, that we've been looking at as the Massachusetts MVSOA, which is the Massachusetts Veteran Service Officers. So, and there's been, we've been going, there's meetings for the Northeast Veteran Service Officers. We do that weekly. We had, so there's also a Merrimack Veterans Collaborative, and I'm on the Vision Committee for that. Today we had our meeting, and it was on veteran education benefits. And so, we had different presenters and stuff, so that way, to get the word out and kind of get get more training on, and also contacts, level of understanding of the different education benefits requirements for those. You know,
Excuse me, Karen, haven't the education benefits, I read something about that, haven't they been extended and broadened a little bit? Was that the tenor you were getting? Someone was relaying that to me.
yeah, so now they can, so it was, you know, like a 15-year rule, and then there's a 10-year rule, and you can have it for 36 months because there's the GI Bill, there's the post 9/11 GI Bill, and then there's VOC rehab, but now it's called VOC education and employment, where if you're 10% disabled, so there's like all these crazy like caveats and different chapters of law that are involved in finding out whether or not what you're eligible for. And also it's important to continue to have these meetings and trainings, because one of the things that I just learned today is that, you know, so if you use your post 9/11 GI Bill, you get money for housing, right? Your BAH, for those that have been in the military, you're familiar with that. And so, so you receive housing allowance. Well, since everything went virtual, they weren't going to let you have the housing allowance. Well, that's the difference between if you have your housing allowance and you're in school, that's a $3,000 benefit. But if you don't have it in school and everything's virtual through no fault of your own, it's only an $800 benefit. So those students who were counting on having this housing allowance is now, you know, now they can't go to school, they can't get the housing allowance, you know what I mean? How are they going to pay for their rent? And so this is some of the stuff that, you know, you come up against when, you know, dealing with veteran benefits. And dealing with COVID and the way that the world is now. So I guess what I heard today, so they are extending, so they're saying that you can get your BAH, your housing allowance, and for the fall semester, and then they're gonna make a decision in December about what to do for the spring. Well, that's a problem because it's in October and November that you're picking your classes for the spring semester. And so so with the presenters that we had today, it was just very interesting because, you know, the subject matter experts on what kind of challenges that come up when dealing with this stuff and dealing with COVID. And so I don't know, we'll see what happens, but that's a problem that we're having right now. So what else? So on the weekly, we have weekly calls with the state. And another thing that was brought up that, you know, in regards to COVID and how it's affecting benefits is, so the VSOs during this call, we identified there's a huge impact that COVID's going to have on our veterans and surviving spouses. Because one of the things, and so the state gave us the directive to, if somebody passes away, if they're 100% service-connected disabled, right, and they pass away, their spouse only receives money if what the person died from was because of their service connection. Well, we're like, but now they're putting down COVID as the cause of death. But we're saying, well, that person had these pre-existing conditions, you know, whether or not it was diabetes or something like that, where because they had the diabetes, that might have caused, you know, the reason why they had died from COVID. And so then the spouse wouldn't get the benefit because they were saying that it was unrelated, that it wasn't due to service connection, which is pretty, you know what I mean? Which is huge, absolutely huge. So that's something that, you know, and having these conversations and stuff and like working together. So we were able to get the state to recognize that when it comes to state benefits, but the federal government needs to recognize it for federal benefits. But us here in Massachusetts, we got direction from the secretary, that Cheryl Poppy, to when somebody dies that's service connected, to get the doctor to write like a note, some backup documentation, so that way the spouse can still get the benefit and the state will recognize that. So there's just, you know what I mean? So there's just a lot of different things like that. I got some medals. I've gotten 3 Ambassador for Peace medals, 2 Medal of Liberties, and I'm also working with a Vietnam veteran who did not have his Vietnam Service Medal on his DD 214. So that's something that I'm working with him about, trying to, we're applying to the corrections board. And then also, one of the things that I just set up today that I think I'll go to all the towns, but in November, I'm doing a Zoom call. So through the Council on Aging, we were talking, one of the things that at the Wenham Board of Selectmen meeting, they said, previously I did a presentation on veteran benefits. I said, can you do another one? And so I contacted the Council on Aging, and we're setting it up to do a Zoom benefits, presentation. And I thought doing it in November would be a good time to do that. So that way it's, around Veterans Day. And so I think that what I'll do is contact the other, the other COAs and see what kind of programs they're doing or what's being successful in each of the towns, and kind of come up with a strategy or a way that I could do that in all the towns.
Could you do set it up so that it would include all the towns in the district, and then let the directors of the councils know that you're putting this together and invite them all?
Oh, that sounds like a great idea, to only have to do it once.
Right. Because pretty much the benefits apply to everybody.
Exactly. It would be
there's not a differentiation between, Ipswich benefits and Wenham benefits and Georgetown, So maybe I guess I would suggest, if you're going to put together a program like that, put it together and let the different councils on aging know when it's going to be and all the details, and they could circulate that to their memberships.
Yeah, that's great. Yep. See, you're a thinker. That's a great idea.
Do we have a Zoom line? This is, do we have a limit to the participants, Karen? I ran into this on another board I sit, where we expanded it, and we didn't have enough Zoom lines. So one thing to think about is, if you do it for all the towns, make sure you have enough, the Zoom is appropriate to the potential attendance.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a good point, because I think the free version is up to 50 in attendance, and then the next level I think will allow 500. But that's a paid level.
Right.
But
Karen, you could 1,000 participants the other day. 1,000. So it does go as high as you want it, but it was not meaningful.
No, but Karen, check with the town manager's office in Ipswich and see what resources. I mean, it might not cost the town, it might not cost Ipswich any extra to let you use it. I don't know, but it's worth checking out.
Yeah, no, it doesn't cost anything. I actually usually use Ipswich's. I use Tony's. And there's 2 other meetings, and ICAM's gonna have to leave our meeting in about 10 minutes to go do another one. But anyways, so since I didn't use Ipswich, I called over and Newbury gave me one. So getting somebody to give me a line is not a problem.
And they, the towns use these for all of their public hearings, so they have to have more than 50 lines available. Yep. So good. Keep us posted on that.
Yeah.
That it, Karen? That's quite a lot, but.
I know.
All right.
I have a question for Karen, if you might, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Go ahead, Doug.
So, since we were all transported to Bizarro World sometime in January, I just had a question about on the newsletter that you were doing, because the first one that came out was very good. And I was just curious if there was any plans going forward to maybe have another one come out prior to the end of the year.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that that I can work on. What Jean did was, was incredible. It was an amazing, amazing newsletter. The program that she used to create the newsletter was something that she had, like, we didn't own it. It was because she's like a tech, she came from IT, so she knows all that. So yeah, definitely we can look into doing another newsletter. Just know that it's not going to be at that same like high tech level that Jean was able to do. But yeah, I certainly can look into it for sure.
Okay, well, it's just a way to get information out.
Yep.
Yep. Doesn't have to be, magazine quality or anything.
Yeah, hers was gorgeous.
But she did a good job.
Yeah, she's amazing.
All right, any more questions for Karen? All right. Karen Summit, give us
Hello.
the financials.
So Karen sent out to everybody the fiscal 20 year-end financials and also the fiscal 21 to date financials. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at those?
Yes.
I did want to just point out that for the end of fiscal year 20, we had budgeted for a loss of $10,000 because we were using retained earnings to pay for half of the salary.
Mhm.
So we actually ended up with a profit of $12,230. However, about 8,900 of that was the bank account kind of found money that we had. So we actually did end up with a profit of about roughly $13,000. So that will go into our retained earnings, going forward. Does anyone have any particular, questions on the fiscal year 20 financials?
Retained earnings are at what level, Karen? I just don't have it at the top of my head.
Hold on one second. I've got to pull up the balance sheet. Which of course is on another email. Hold on one second.
It's never on the screen you have up.
Of course not. So retained earnings, once we add in last year's, will be about 75,000.
75,000.
And
Thank you.
I think we had budgeted a deficit of about $4,000 this year, because when Hamilton left, we decided to keep assessments constant and run a little bit of a deficit. So, we may want to look at that when we're looking at doing our budget for next year, because we had kind of wanted to have a threshold of about 50,000 left in retained earnings, and we're above that now. So it's something to definitely keep in mind when we do the budget for fiscal year 22. Any other questions on fiscal year 20?
So there looks like there's some significant savings in certain areas, and one of them is education. And Karen mentioned that some of these conferences and trainings are virtual now, so I assume that there'll be savings in the near future as well.
Right, depending on how long this goes on. Karen, did you adjust your budget for that at all this year? Or did you keep that level?
I kept it
Do you remember off the top of your head?
Yeah. So when I was trying to do the revised budget and I was looking for places to cut, one of them was education, because I was so I cut that in half. But if it doesn't happen, then obviously that money will still be there, because right now, because when we did this budget, it was pre-COVID, back when the world was a different place.
Right.
Right.
Pre-Bizarro world.
Right. So any more questions on fiscal 20? With regard to fiscal 21, you know, we're really not into it very far. The budget, the financials go through the first 2 months. Karen, have we now collected all of our assessments, or are we still waiting on Ipswich?
We're getting Ipswich on Thursday.
Okay. So that's always a good thing. And like I said, it's pretty early in the year to, you know, start looking at things. One of the things we do pay right off the top is our Essex Regional Retirement Assessment. But otherwise, everything is more or less fairly linear for the year. Any questions on 21?
Yeah, just a
Go ahead,
quick
Lynn.
question on insurances. Do you pay those for the year in advance to capture any savings?
If you're talking about like health insurances, those are paid monthly as the costs are incurred by the towns.
Okay. Or are there other, I guess, well, for instance, there's insurance listed above under Essex Regional Retirement System. The next line item is insurance, and then the one after that is insurance workers' comp. So
I think one of those is an office. That's an annual bill. I think it's for the office insurance. And then workman's comp is basically what happens is we get an audit and then we get a bill.
okay. I just didn't know if there was anything, and it probably not, but you would pay in advance for the whole year to get any kind of savings on.
Right. And I don't think in government that we really have opportunities like that. I mean, if there was something like that, it's something we could do, because basically we assess at the beginning of the year and we collect our assessments and then, you know, drain them down over the year.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything like that would
Okay.
be available.
All right. That's the only question I have on this. Thank you.
And we have, in Essex, we're wrestling, and I'm sure this is true of the other towns, with an OPEB issue. Is that
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear you, cut out.
OPEB issue, which is sort of a, you know, an actuarial analysis of healthcare costs?
OPEB, yes,
Do we have that issue, or are we piggybacking and having it taken care of the town that's appropriate? And maybe, you know, I guess, do we take that issue as a committee, or is that sort of been farmed out to the town that's, you know, the town we're piggybacking on? What's our analysis on it?
You know, I don't know that there is an OPEB liability for the district. I'm very familiar with it from a town perspective, but I don't know.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
actually an interesting question.
Right. We're wrestling with it. You know, it's an actuarial, again, Karen, tell me if I'm stepping out of bounds here, but it's an actuarial hole that most towns have associated with retirement healthcare costs.
Oh, exactly. No, I'm very familiar with OPEB
Right,
and the
I'm just
liability.
trying to
Just
open
not how it would refer to the veterans, because basically our retayees get their insurance from, they're included in that liability, or exactly how that works for the district.
Karen Summit, can you go
Yeah.
back? You're breaking up a little bit, so just go
Oh,
back
sorry.
maybe about a minute
So-
and a half there.
Oh, sorry. So I'm very familiar with OPEB liabilities and, you know, how they affect the towns, but I'm not sure about the district, because the retirees are covered under the insurance plan of whatever member town. I believe right now it's Ipswich, but I'm not sure. That would be something that I would be interested in checking into.
You know, we spent a lot of time the last couple of weeks on it, so it's been fresh in my mind. I was curious how it affects affects our situation.
Right, but that's interesting. You know, I haven't thought of that from the veterans' perspective before. So let me see what I can find out.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Karen? Okay.
Yeah, it's Bill. I got one question.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, looking at the sheet, it seems to be pretty consistent. You know, I spent about 20% of the overall budget. First couple of months seems okay. But telephone and website expenses, over 50% has been paid already.
Because the website is a flat fee of $1,000 a year that you pay up front.
That much, okay.
Yeah.
And all right, and then the telephone fees, is that, I'm not sure what that is. Is that like the cell phones and?
Well, what happened was the district changed. I think it was around the first part of the year. Maybe it actually took place in August. And they're now getting their phones and cell phones through the town of Ipswich.
Right.
So there is a flat monthly fee that's being paid. So that's actually gone down significantly from previous years.
Yeah.
So there is a savings in the phone bill now for mobile phones, correct, Karen?
Correct, but I believe that was budgeted for.
Yes.
Karen, that's correct? Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay, so nothing to be concerned about here, run plan.
Yes.
So all expected.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, I think our next meeting will be in the beginning of June. I know, June, holy. This year has been that kind of year, okay? December, okay?
Bob, if I may, I have an update about a veteran issue in Ipswich. It actually affects Georgetown. So if I could have a minute.
Sure. Go right ahead.
Okay. So this concerns a resident of Georgetown who's a veteran over the age of 70, and he came to Ipswich looking for a recreational shellfish permit during the summer. And last year or the year before, the state passed a new law that said that Massachusetts veterans may receive a shellfishing permit in a town they don't live in for the same price that a resident of that town may get one for. So he came to Ipswich and he wanted to get a recreational permit. And for residents of Ipswich, that fee is $40 a year. But we also have a category of resident permits that are for senior citizens that are over the age of 70 or older. But that's only for residents. The law was not clear that that would apply to non-residents that are veterans over the age of 70. So long story short, we told this gentleman, he came to a Shellfish Advisory Board meeting and was very insistent that he was do this free, or well, this $10 permit instead of $40. And we couldn't just go ahead and do it because it's not in our fee structure and it's not part of our regulations. And the state law was very unclear about it. So we told him that he could get the recreational permit for the $40 fee and that we would investigate with the state. And if it turned out that we do in fact have to change our regulations, we would issue him the difference in a refund as soon as those regulations were changed. So he ultimately still has not applied for the recreational permit, and it's kind of closing towards the end of the year. So I don't imagine that he will unless it's after next year. But I had a phone call, or a meeting rather, with the Division of Marine Fisheries Director and their legal staff and our town manager and our town council just to straighten this out. And Division of Marine Fisheries Director and their staff agreed that the law is silent as to special age categories. But they would investigate it and they would get back to us, which they did. about 2 weeks ago, and they sent a memo, and Newbury and you, Bob, for Rowley and Essex should have received it, that they are advising all shellfishing cities and towns that issue permits in Massachusetts to recognize what they called similarly situated categories. So in other words, if a veteran who lives in Massachusetts comes to a city or town and wants a recreational permit, and that city or town has special age categories, for instance, for senior citizens, then they will be qualified to get that discounted rate. So what the town of Ipswich has done, the Shellfish Advisory Board undertook a complete overhaul of our regulations and fees just this week. And we're going to be making a recommendation to the select board to adopt all of these updates to our regulations, including an over 70 fee for non-resident veterans. That will require 2 public hearings before the select board. So it's not going to happen, next week or in 2 weeks, but it is coming, and that's the update. So just wanted to let everybody know, because it affects this resident from Georgetown, and it affects several of your communities as far as your shellfishing regulations.
How much would a permit be if I was not an Ipswich resident or senior citizen? The 10, the 40, if I just wanted to get a permit, if I could even, as an out-of-towner, a non-veteran, what's the top expense?
For an annual fee, it's $150.
Okay, so there's a savings.
Yeah, so this gentleman would have saved $110
Okay.
right off the bat, just without the over 70 category. But we were grateful that he brought it to our attention. And again, the state law, what I did learn was that the legislators who proposed the law back in 2018 did not consult with the Division of Marine Fisheries. So that's why there was some ambiguity in the way it was written. And, cities and towns can't just go and make an exception on a whim. It has to be in the regulations. Town clerks need to have a fee structure, and we couldn't make an exception for this one gentleman until we did all this. And Karen, I hope you understood, because you were at that meeting, but we could not make an exception for one without something in our regulations. And because then someone else will come along, and then it presents a problem for the town clerk. How does she determine who to make exceptions for when there's nothing in the law, right? So it's in process, and I'm sure that by the end of the year it will be in the regulations, and the new fee structures will be in place.
Linda, the fee structure has to be at town meeting to be approved, correct?
No, our select board, our
Okay.
select board has public hearings at their regularly scheduled meetings.
Okay.
And they are in Ipswich. I don't know about your other towns, but in Ipswich, the select board are also the shellfish commissioners.
We have a separate in Raleigh, separate shellfish commission.
So maybe your charter's different as to how fees are approved. I will tell you for Rowley, Essex, and Newbury that the other thing that was in that memo from the division director of marine fisheries was they are also going to require that cities and towns post their fee structure on their town website, separate from their regulations, so that it's easy to find information.
Well, thank you for the update. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go back and any other questions, discussions? Okay, so the next time we meet will be in December. Okay, and probably the first week. Karen, I'll talk to you, Karen Tyler, and we'll set up a date. And with that, everybody be safe. Eileen, thank you so much tonight. And Kathy, we haven't heard from you, so thank you for attending the meeting with us tonight. And thank you, Karen, Director, and everybody else. I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
All right.
So,
Aye.
Good to see you all.
all right, everybody take care. We'll see
Take care.
you.
Safe,
Take care.
everybody.
Have a nice,
Night.
everyone.